our identity and our mission kind of get all kind of roll together, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so that we are what we do rather than we are who we are, and then we get to do whatever it is.
Yeah.
But when our identity gets wrapped into what we do, because I was a human doing, right, instead of a human being.
Yeah.
That was my mantra is who am I? I am the guy who started preaching at 15. I'm the, I identified myself by what I did, and I was constantly trying to do more because, again, my bad theology, I was trying to earn the Father's smile. I gotta be good because when I'm not doing enough, he's frowning. And that was my misunderstanding of grace and the gospel. But when you finally understand, wow, you mean the gospel is about I can't lose his smile? Wow, that's a game changer. That I have my Father's smile. I can now be. I can rest.
Welcome to the Age of Lions podcast, a platform and community dedicated to bringing purpose, strategy, and calling to kingdom-minded people who are 50 plus and excited about their next chapter. Here's your host, Mark Clement.
Hey everybody, hope you're doing so well. As you heard from that clip, that's our guest today, Tray Lovvorn. Going to be an amazing episode. Can't wait for you to get into our conversation and hear what he has to say about aging and playfulness and just the journey that God has taken him on, especially the part where things happen that you don't expect. Life throws you a curveball, your life gets turned upside down. Many of us have been there at different ages of life. Some of us are in that right now. Some of us have been through it recently. Could be divorce, could be job change, could be a career thing, could be some illness in your family or someone caring for an aging parent, or any number of things that can happen that we don't expect. And so the way he talks about how God has led him through that process and his identity, it's really powerful, and I can't wait for you to learn from it. I know I learned a ton listening and talking to Tray. Before we get into that today, I want to thank you again for being here. It's been an amazing few weeks since we launched at the beginning of August. Now we're starting our second month, which is incredible. And it's been a really fun journey. Just hundreds and hundreds of people listening and downloading and watching on YouTube and commenting and sending messages and of encouragement. It's just been an amazing process for me. It really has exceeded every expectation. And I'm so excited about what's to come. So many great guests lined up for you over the next several weeks, and it's going to be an amazing thing. Before we get into today's interview, I want to share something with you that I've watched a couple times over the last few weeks. It's football season. The football kicked off this last Saturday. Crazy weekend, a lot of different results. And many of you might remember Jameis Winston. He was the quarterback at Florida State and then went on to play in the NFL and still is there. And I've heard him interviewed a couple of times lately, and he talked about challenging himself to think about how he was dreaming. And basically what he was saying is that he's realized through his career as he's kind of progressed and moved up in the ranks and done different things that he didn't dream big enough in the beginning. And basically what he's talking about is he dreamed of making it to the NFL. And that's a great dream. That's a big dream. But he didn't dream specifically about how good of a quarterback he was going to be, or dream about being on a winning team, or dream about winning a Super Bowl or being a champion. And he's accomplished the dream that he had, but he realized there was bigger dreams that he wasn't dreaming. And I just think that's a great lesson. He's a believer. He talks with a lot of faith. If you ever get to hear him speak or being interviewed, I would highly recommend it. It's really fascinating, the journey that he's been on. But I thought it really challenged me to think about, how am I dreaming about my future? How am I dreaming about my family? How am I dreaming about my career and the impact that I'm having? And as we're talking about aging with purpose, being intentional, thinking about how we're making a difference, how we're answering the call of God in our life, how we're saying yes to the things He's calling us to do, I want to challenge myself and challenge you to think about, how big are you dreaming? Because our dreams are not about our ability. Our dreams are about what can God do in our life and with the people around us, and how can He influence and use the impact that we have and give us more of it as we go. And so I want to challenge you to, are you thinking big enough? Are you dreaming big enough? Are you really imagining all that God could do in your life? Because if you're not, you might get to a certain level and realize, man, there's more, and God can still take you there. But did I have the faith early on to think this was even possible? Did I have the faith to think that my dream could come true? So I want to encourage you just to be praying about that, thinking about it as you go forward. And I think that's a great thing to kind of be processing as we go into this conversation with Tray Lovvorn. So enjoy that, and we'll see you on the other side. Hey everybody, excited to be here today, and got a really special guest, Tray Lovvorn. Trey's an old friend of mine. We met when we kind of started going to the same church together, and we had a mutual friend and connected. And what was that? Probably like 2010 or 2009?
It may have been even before that, but at least that long ago. Yeah, it's longer than we'd like to think about, certainly. So.
Right. And we have been through a lot together. He's a good friend, a really dear friend. He's a client. He's a fellow entrepreneur. We have a lot of similar things in our story, and he's just been somebody I've kind of done a lot of life with over the last 15 plus years. And so welcome, Trey. Glad to have you, man.
Man, great to be here. Glad to know that Mark Clement is doing this podcast, and glad that you would even consider having me on. So, yeah, looking forward to this.
Well, the truth is, I'm hoping to get more famous people later, but for now.
If I can help you get your strokes in, that's fine. Whatever I can do to serve, brother.
Yeah.
And I always have appreciated your gift of keeping people humble as well. So thank you for that.
Right. Brutal honesty.
It's a gift that very few people call out, but I just want to be the one, here 3 episodes into your podcast that call out that special gift that you have.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. That's a backhanded compliment if I've ever heard one.
That's right.
Well, as everybody knows who's listening, this is really all about aging with purpose. And Trey and I both are in our he's early 50s, I'm mid 50s, but he's kind of crossed over in the last few years. And so the thing I like to ask people right out of the gate is just talk about that moment for you, whatever age it was, when you started to think, I'm older than I want to admit that I am. I'm starting to feel it. I see the way people look at me. I've moved from the young up and coming, trainee to now I'm the mentor. What was that moment for you?
Yeah, it's been in recent years, because sometimes I don't know that it maybe has hit yet. I have had some lower back stuff that started probably about 10 years ago. And so I think that was the moment where, oh gosh, I'm old and I'm just going to be dealing with this. But I think for me, that really began a journey of, do we have to, once we get 50, see that as old, and now you just kind of accept everything that culture says is supposed to start happening? And I think that's the problem with a lot of us, is we just said, okay, I'm 50 now. Yep. See, there it is. And now we just start, accepting all the things that are happening. And I was doing that to some degree with my lower back stuff. I was taking probably 4 Advil, every morning, get up, have a glass of water. 4 Advil was just a normal thing. And I got married at 20. So I was always the young guy. So all the, so when you get married that young, your kids and your peers who are other parents and stuff, they're going to be a little older, because we started having kids, when I was younger. And so anyway, I was always the younger. And then there was a point in time where I realized, wait a minute, I look around the room, is like, I think I'm the oldest person here. Yeah. And that is, when you've had the mindset, I'm always the youngest, and people are, they're surprised my whole of how young I actually was at times, preaching early and all that stuff. That was but now I'm in that other place, and it's not necessarily fun, but I've been losing my hair for a while. So for at least 10 years, I've been saying my haircuts are numbered. So I've been accepting that.
I feel that. That's one thing I don't think we've ever talked about, but I was married at 20 as well and started having kids early. And it was a weird experience to always be kind of the young person. And you and I were both on stage a lot, me more with music, you speaking, both leaders, both kind of in rooms that we were probably a little too young for, but we just were stepping into that. And it is weird when you hit that point where you realize I'm on the other side of that. And I don't know about you. I don't think of myself as older in the general sense. Like, I don't feel old.
That's right.
We have our aches and pains and whatever that are natural as we grow older. But mentally, I feel like I'm still 35, and even probably some of that's just the still building new things and trying new things and starting new things, like that energy that kind of goes with that. So it's always a little shocking when I realize that somebody else sees me as older. I was telling on one of the other episodes, I was interviewing my brothers just for fun, because we have a good time talking. And I was telling them this story about, on the worship team at my church, the people who lead are like 30. So, I mean, they're adults, but to us, they're so young. And so we're on stage.
I have a daughter who's 30. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And they're telling you where to stand on this particular day. And this young lady who leads for us, she called me Mr. Mark. She said, "Mr. Mark, if you'll stand over here." And I went, who was she talking? Oh, she's talking to me. And
That's
I was
right.
telling Jenda, you don't realize how they see you. And I'm not saying that they look at me as an old man. I don't think that's the case, but they definitely see me as an older guy.
Yeah. You're old enough that they're having that tension of, wait a minute, do I just call him Mark or do I do Mr. Mark or Mr. Clement? Yeah.
Which is shocking to me. I'm like, well, just call me Mark. Like, we're peers. Like, we're the same.
Yeah. Well, both of us do have this gray beard going for us. So it's not like we're trying to hide it very much, that we're putting that out in the forefront.
Yeah. I did go through that phase, though. I have to admit, I had a phase actually when I worked at the college. It was a very young staff, and I wasn't trying to pretend that I was young. Like, I never went full dark, but I did try to get a little bit more pepper into the salt and pepper.
Yeah.
So
we've gone full salt mode right now.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that's definitely part of it.
One of the things I will say to that, it reminded me when you were talking about this a few years ago, really is a life-changing thing. The Braveheart Intensive, a good friend of mine, Michael Warden, who does that curriculum. It's all about identity. And that was pivotal. I did that the first time online in 2008, went through it in person in 2017. And then I came back, and basically what that does, identity statement, mission statement, but then values. And when I went back through it a couple of years ago, a new value that kind of I mined out of that process was purposeful play. And I think for me growing up, because I was, started preaching at 15 and always, as you were describing, kind of younger than, say, peers in that moment or whoever else was maybe sharing the stage or whatever. I think even back thinking about my childhood, I think just kind of that maturing that I felt I had to do, that there's no room for play. Play is wasteful. Play is immature. That's not godly. I need to just put off all the childish things, taking those scriptures a bit out of context of, well, play is childish, but really, I guess in the last 5 years, just this whole playfulness, and I still haven't mastered it, but I think especially as believers in the church, there's a seriousness about the gospel, our mandate, our calling and all of that. But just because it's serious and just because there's a lot at stake doesn't mean we have to lose, a playfulness, a sense of play. And sometimes I think I wish, loved parenting and all of that, but I think, making ends meet, providing and all that, there was obviously stress with that. And I wish I had brought more of a playfulness, even as I was rearing kids and, entering into the playfulness that was natural, obviously having kids. So I do have some regrets there, but, can't go back, change that. But certainly in the last 5 years, that's been on the forefront. What does play look like? What does it look like to be responsible, but to show up with a playfulness? And I think that brings a curiosity, and I think there's a youthfulness about that. I think about, childhood and growing up on a farm. And I remember how long the days felt in the summer. It's like, man, these just going out and playing and just getting lost and building forts in the woods and all the things. And there was just this excitement just about what's around the next corner. And I think we don't have to lose that. And even looking back to scripture where Jesus said, do not forsake the children to come to me. He kind of rebukes the disciples who were, they kind of maybe had that mindset. Wait a minute, this is a waste of time. We got kingdom business that we need to be about. And they're rebuking these folks that are bringing kids to Jesus. And he rebukes them. Do not suffer the little children to come to me, for such is the kingdom. The original language there, the word children is actually infants. And I really, that was a turning point to realize, wow, the kingdom is built on needy infants. Because if an infant is anything, you've got kids, 4 like me. It's like if an infant is anything, it's a bundle of needs.
Yeah.
And so that amazing thing where here I felt erroneously for so long that my purpose is to show God how self-sufficient I can be. My role in the kingdom is that God can just do a little 5-minute flyby because he's got some real big problems, overseas somewhere in the third world, but know that that I think our God, our creator, is a playful God. I mean, look at some of the animals he created. I mean, you can't say there's not some playfulness there when we look at the world around us. And I regret sometimes that I missed that, or it took me so many years to really come into that purposeful play.
Yeah.
And I think that whole mindset, there's a youthfulness around that. And so we don't feel old because we are bringing a curiosity and a playfulness and that childlike wonder, to whatever each day opens up for us.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a good insight. I struggle with that too, because again, being married young, having kids young, I'm not naturally fun with like kids and stuff. Like I'm not the guy that all the kids want to come play with, and I'm just not typically interested. And I'm okay.
Yeah, you
with
and
that.
I would not make good youth directors.
Yeah. I mean, we probably. I know I spent some time as a youth pastor. You probably did too. We all do coming up, but it wasn't my thing. Like
no.
The seniors and college kids, I was like kind of cool with because they could give you back and forth. But yeah, it's just not my natural gifting. And I was the same way. That is something I look back on with my kids, and I thought I didn't do a great job. I had 4 jobs at a time, sometimes trying to just make a living and keep the lights on and find my way. And that's not an excuse. That's just the reality of it. And then you mix that with my personality, and it just wasn't a great mix. But I have found, as I've gotten older, I love the playfulness in the sense of adventure and what's next and what's possible and what's around the corner. And we could definitely talk more about that in a second, but also just the being older and more established, and, got money in the bank, and you're a little bit more comfortable with yourself, hopefully, and with your life. And you're not too worried about what people think, and you're not trying to impress people. So I do find myself when I'm around people, whether it's teams that I work with, or if I'm at the church with worship or whatever, like I can be a little bit more lighthearted, a little more fun, a little more goofy, like, and they tend to enjoy that too. They, probably older, funny guy or goofy guy or smart aleck guy, whatever they're thinking.
That's right.
Sarcasm is more my thing than just funny. But yeah, I think the point of just like, there's a freedom that comes from being a little bit older. If you embrace it, that's for sure. Speaking of that, as you've been getting a little bit older, what would you say has been the hardest part of the aging, or the hardest thing to deal with, or hardest thing to get over? Like what's been the biggest challenge?
Just understanding limitations. I think just the most recent example. So, just a few days from today, going to be headed to Orange Beach with the family. It's Memorial Day, and Memorial Day, there's been this thing called a MRF, right? For, many, many years, after the special operator who did this special run and so many push-ups and pull-ups and running a mile in a certain amount of time. And so the text thread leading up to okay, who wants to do the MRF on Memorial Day, and I'm already, I'm at that place now where I'm not even trying to pretend like I'm going to be able, to get ready and hold my own with that. Last year, 2 of my kids did the Nashville Marathon. They came in, did that. One of my kids did the half marathon. My daughter-in-law did the full marathon, and then I did the 5K and suffered through that. So it's like, so those things, it's hard though, because I want to, and again, back to what we were saying about playfulness, during those years where I could be active and doing all those things, I was more focused on the work and providing and, making ends meet and all that. And now that I want to be more, like we were just talking about the playful and stuff. Now that the body doesn't necessarily, but I think also having a maturity to say, nope, I'm not going to do that, kill myself, and then not enjoy the rest of the vacation either, being laid up. But I think, it's been hard too. I mean, I love this stage of being co-adults with my kids. Love it. I mean, but the downside of that is they're not always here. It's almost like this perfect mix. If I've got 1 in Denver, I've got 2 in Birmingham, 1 here in Nashville. And, so I'm so looking for this time at the beach, just because now we can all kind of be together, at least for a short amount of time. But that's a painful part, just part of the aging process. We want to launch our children well. And I do love the co-adult. It's so fun just to be a co-adult with our kids and not have to be that parent-child dynamic anymore. But at the same time, they're not here. They're launched. And, so they're true friends, but it's friends I don't get to see as much as I want.
Yeah, I get that question a lot from people who have younger kids, and they'll ask, like, what's it like to have older kids, or what's the difference? Or however they say it. And what I always tell them is the thing, as kids get older and more independent through high school and then obviously college and adulthood, they need you obviously a lot less. But when they do need you, it's big. They need to talk about life, marriage, education, their job, money. Like it's the weight of it is more important. So it's just it just shifts in that different way. They still need you, but at a much higher level, not as often. But and it's like when you get that phone call and you see the name pop up. My first thought always is, I hope everything's okay. Not that we don't talk or we spend time together, but it's usually in person. So a call like that is always like, I hope everything's okay. And my kids, my 3 and then my 5 stepkids, my 3 happen to all be here local with us now, and they haven't been in the past, but Jenda's kids are spread all over the place. We've got one at home, the 14-year-old, but then we've got, like you, we've got 2 in Montana. One was in Utah last year. We've got Texas. We've got Delaware. Like they are literally all over the country. And it's been a hard adjustment you just don't see them as much. And Jenda likes to give them a hard time when we are together. She'll say, when are y'all going to move back closer? And when are you going to, and they're like, well, you raised us to be adventurous and you raised us to be independent and find our own path. And she's like, well, that was a terrible mistake.
That's right. Because now there's a lot of investment now to actually make it happen. And you can't just, on a whim, there's going to be a lot of planning to get with them. So I'm hopeful that my oldest, who was in Denver, my youngest was in Denver. She and her husband, they've already moved back to Birmingham. And so looks like my oldest is going to be coming back at least to the south.
That's exciting.
Somewhere a little closer.
Yeah, just driving distance, just within 3 or 4 hours would be a huge one. Because the same way, like we can't go see them without a plane trip or an all-day drive or a 2-day drive. Like it's not, you can't just pop in. So, so what would you say is the best part of getting older that you found?
Early on, I heard, and I think I've done this okay. Experience is the best teacher as long as it's somebody else's experience. Right. And I guess at this age, I've been able to cultivate from a lot of other people's experience and things that they've learned the hard way that did save me some pain. But I've also had my own pain. I've also had my own experience that, has lent itself to a lot of other, wisdom in that and experience. And then you want to pass that on to your kids and just not have to be, back to the playfulness, not have to be so serious about everything. We have a sovereign God who is writing a good story. And every day I try to wake up and part of my morning prayer is, Lord, help me to explore today with a curiosity as your beloved son, not living as an orphan, as if I've got to figure it all out, as if I'm completely alone in this scary world. It can be a scary world, but to show up in that proper understanding of my identity and purpose.
You did have kind of a pretty significant curveball come your way right around the time you were turning 50. And that's, of course, a huge understatement. I will have you talk about it. But, I think that happens to us a lot. It can be something as severe as yours, and I'll let you talk about that. Or it could be other more minor things, but they feel big. I think we get to a point in life where we think, man, we've kind of got it figured out. And not that we know all the answers, but we're on a good path. And we feel like, okay, we're kind of locked into our plan. Maybe that tractor beam, we feel like it's honest and we're, going in the right direction. And then things can just, come out of nowhere, like an illness or a job change or whatever. But talk about the curveball that came your way and how you kind of processed and dealt with that. Because you've done a phenomenal job coming through it, but walking through that with you, I know how hard it was.
Yeah, it was. And so for those maybe you don't know anything about my story, so just at a high level, I was, like we said earlier, married at 20, married for 11 years, divorced for 6 years. And then after 6 years of being divorced, we kind of miraculously reconciled and remarried. And then in 2008, after that remarriage, just a lot of became just this natural thing, people going through struggles and similar things. So we'll talk to the Lovvorns. And so we basically within a year and a half, we had a ministry around that, helping a lot of people. We started a podcast in 2013 and a whole ministry around that, helping men, helping women, and helping couples. And And so then 13 years later, though, and I guess with all that, with that 6 years of divorce, what I really learned, and this was a theological shift, is that because my theology back in those days when I started preaching at an early age, it was like, I'm the first round draft choice for the kingdom. He's glad to have me on his team. I got to go show God how good a choice he made by having me. I can't let him down. It's all up to me. There's that orphan. I even call it orphan spirituality. There's an orphan, but I was doing spiritual things in that incorrect spirituality, kind of this meet God halfway thing. But with that theology, I didn't have a theology of suffering. I didn't have a theology of pain.
Yeah.
Now, how I missed that throughout Scripture, because Scripture does not hold back anything as it relates to these stories of pain and overcoming and the brutal stuff that, story after story. It's like,
well,
somehow I thought I was immune to that.
We both grew up Baptists. We don't talk about suffering in the Baptist
exactly. Church. It's like, and it's like, and then me and Jesus and everything's great. Right. And so, so I didn't have a theology of suffering. So that period, it taught me that healing is on the other side of pain. Mm. And so I began to embrace that. And then even as we came back together, what I was pressing into men, and even today when I coach men, it's about giving them permission to press into the pain. There's the pain of the disease, or there's the pain of healing. Surgery is pain too. Yeah. Right. It's the pain of the surgery or the pain of the disease. Pain-free is not an option. And I think for me, and probably a lot of other guys that I have worked with, we spend so much time and energy trying to avoid pain that if we would just lean into the pain, press into it, then we're going to get to the other side. So I'd done that, the whole healing pain, all of that. But here's what I did, though. I thought I have graduated from that season. I am now
check it off
an expert in that. And now my role is to help everybody else go through their healing pain. And so in April of 21, I was absolutely completely blindsided by, now I will own that maybe I shouldn't have been blindsided. Maybe I should have seen some of the things that were coming. And I've done a lot of work around that. Wait, why was I blindsided? What did I miss? That my ex-wife was trying to communicate, but I was blindsided nonetheless. And so that losing my marriage, because we had this reconciliation, our stories in this movie and all this, the podcast, we've got over 300 episodes of giving people hope through our reconciliation story. And now we're not.
And it was a huge part of your identity. I mean, it was your work.
Absolutely.
It was your personal life. It was your ministry. It was your story. I mean, you were kind of known for it.
Exactly. And so we built a whole, our livelihood around that. It wasn't a plan. It was just kind of a way it happened. So the pain, not only of going through a divorce that I was blindsided, but also losing my livelihood around 50, splitting my, what little life savings I had, having to split that at 50 and start over financially and now find a new career. Thankfully, I had sold educational software, and that's what ultimately brought me to Tennessee, is they had an opening in Nashville to cover the whole state of Tennessee. So that's what brought me here. But that whole year, man, I was just so angry. I was like, God, what a waste. I mean, I thought, here I've been living my life. You're writing a good story. This doesn't feel very good. I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. This sucks. And frankly, just in my pain, I was like, God, I don't know that you are good. I had a year, at least, maybe even over a year, of just really being angry at God. And the way I really knew, first and foremost, that was showing up, I didn't want to bless my food. I didn't want to pray.
Yeah.
It's like, I was just pissed. It was like, but I can say honestly that I even went through that season. It was not perfect. It was messy. There were days that I was bleeding out on other people, and I was so grateful for the community that I had. But I was doing it as a son. I wasn't an orphan. I wasn't like, I'm over here in timeout. I felt safe enough with God to come to him with my anger. Yeah. And shaking my fist at him at times, sometimes even giving him the finger. And this is not what I wanted, but I guess I'd come to a place theologically that my Father is okay with that. He would rather me bring what's true, my true raw emotions, rather than what I'd done for so many years of feeling what I was feeling, stuffing that and trying to wear the mask that I thought was most acceptable.
Yeah.
It was a hard, painful painful year for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. So what's really amazing, and obviously to God be the glory for this, but you've really come out the other side of that with a kind of renewed energy and a new career focus, and you just got remarried, which has been awesome. And just talk about, how did you, once you were kind of not through the healing, but on the kind of the backside of it, and still, I know it's an ongoing process, but like, you kind of got to a better place and got kind of settled and at peace. Maybe peace is the right word. What did you do to kind of move on and go, okay, I'm starting over. It's not where I thought I was going to be at this stage of my life. I'm north of 50 now, or at 50. What am I going to do? How did you pivot through that and start that process of building something new once you kind of got through the pain of the former thing?
One of the things that happened, and I see God's hand in this, I remember driving. I'd come to Franklin a few times, just kind of doing some scouting. Where might I live? Would this be a place? When I was driving here with my stuff ready, I'm not going back, right? This is now going to become home.
Yeah. I
realized, being physically fit and working out, being an athlete, that had always been a part of my life, but being busy work-wise, I'd let that go. I'd gotten up to, I think the heaviest I ever got was about 240. Thankfully, I'm taller, 6'3", so I can carry that. So I wasn't like sloppy fat, but I was certainly carrying a lot more weight than I should have been.
Yeah.
So on that drive, I remember thinking, God, this is not only a reset work-wise, reset, with my livelihood, with my, area I'm living geographically. I want it to be a reset physically as well. And I had, through a friend of mine in Birmingham, I'd met this guy, but I never met him in person. So I'm meeting with him at Starbucks, right at the Cool Springs exit. And we're talking about just basically networking and who do I need to know, and just kind of helping me get acclimated very quickly. Back to the experience is the best teacher, as long as it's somebody else's experience. I was kind of putting that into practice. But Mark, I'm sitting across from Stephen Ashcraft this whole time. He's 60 years old, and I can see the vein in his biceps through his shirt.
Through his shirt.
Through his shirt. Yeah. The specimen of a guy. I mean, anybody who's listening who knows Stephen Ashcraft knows exactly what I'm talking about. And so we had a little time at the end. I said, okay, I was thinking on the way up here about getting serious about my physical fitness, but me finding a protocol, finding a gym with all the other things I've got to do, probably is not going to happen. I said, what are you doing? And can I start a protocol of sorts? So long story short, he gave me that protocol, began to do that, lost weight, probably in some ways is some of the best shape of my life outside of high school when I was, playing football, basketball, and baseball. And so that was a reset just from energy. And then, you mentioned me remarried. My wife, Shelly, is a health coach. So she's taught me a ton about just, supplements and just how so much of what we're taught, in medicine in general. I think we're seeing this right now with our new, Director of Health and Human Services with Kennedy, and what he's talking about, the poisons in our food and, all the different things. And she was already helping me see some of that. So, taking a lot of supplements now that really help, and just really looking at blood work and what are the levels on certain things. So that has created a lot of energy and youthfulness and excitement. Even a life hack, I know a lot of your listeners probably listen to Andrew Huberman as well. Listened to him a few months ago, and he's talking about nicotine and how not smoking, but the nicotine itself has this, kind of this energetic. So I'm got a nicotine patch on right now, just helping, and it's been amazing just what I've been able to get done with that. So that's been kind of a reset, because I just took my health for granted. I think back to that youthfulness. I'm bulletproof. I'm always going to be this way. And I think that's one of the trends. Okay. I am feeling these aches and pains, but that back pain I talked about, it's gone away. I'm not taking any Advil, magnesium. It's amazing what magnesium, just taking a lot of magnesium, does. So that has been a big piece of the reset, and just, the energy. And then just, when the 2 years of doing this educational software, and then just fell in my lap. I was going to get back into coaching, but then just discovered really almost by accident this platform that, allows for monthly recurring revenue and getting back into the creative space, which I never quit doing the creative. Even when I was doing the ministry, I was doing all the creative for the ministry. So that's always been a passion of mine, design and marketing and, all that communication stuff. And now to be able to do that again. And what I realize now, and I've told a few people lately, is I feel like my mission and my calling and my ministry right now is actually helping other ministries leverage technology, communication tools that are out there, redeem technology even to reach a broader audience, things that they just would not be able to understand on their own. So that's been so fulfilling, and still seeing what God's doing. Some big doors are opening right now with that, but certainly getting married was a huge thing. That's a whole story in of itself. How that all came about. Yeah, I know you've met Shelly; she's amazing, and just another part of that. I look back to that time when I was angry and just saw a dead end. God, what in the world? Why? This is not a good story.
Yeah.
But to see, not only was he rescuing me out of those toxic waters that someone else called it, that was not my diagnosis, but a therapist who had a front row seat to everything, that was what they were saying, to not only rescue me from that, it wasn't just for a status quo, to actually now, I mean, we're joining a new church, and we had a newcomer thing over at the pastor's house last night, and that was fun. Yeah. And, those kind of startovers are fun. And now doing it with my new bride. But these folks don't know my story or Shelly's story. And, so it's fun. It's there's an energy even in of that, but also just being okay that, wow, it's like, well, tell us about yourself. Well, how much time you have? It's like, where do you want me to start?
Yeah, the truth is, I think at our age, everybody has a story. I mean, it's they've had heartache, they've had curveballs, they've had changes. It's hard to fit that in. A big change that I had gone through when I left my entrepreneurship, my businesses. I went to work for a ministry school, a college. I felt called to do that. I had a great time, and then a year and a half ago, I kind of transitioned back out of that and back into the world of being an entrepreneur. And I remember thinking, as I was going through that, I was like, should I go work somewhere else? Should I work for myself? I was just trying to figure out what God wanted me to do. So did you go through anything like that of just kind of counting the cost, so to speak, of starting over? Obviously it's worth it. Your story, you've already said that. I can certainly say that. But just for people who are kind of, if they're right now facing a change, facing a challenge, having to start over, whether it's a marriage or work or a new church or a new town or, whatever the thing is, or the kids are gone and now what do I do? How did you process through that? Because there's some days where you just for me, I mean, you just had to gut it out. Yeah. There was depression that I had to fight through. There was seasons of just like, oh my gosh, like, can I just escape? Can I just get by? Yeah. And I think the enemy wants to get in our ear about that a little bit and say, hey, you don't need to, you've done enough. You're comfortable. Sit on the couch, watch some TV. Like, you're fine. He definitely wants to hold us back. And I think that was definitely part of it too. So anyway, how did you process through that?
And so for that person, maybe who's starting over, I think first of all, making sure, are you where you need to be? Right. And are you really open-handed with what God might be doing and believing truthfully? If you're a believer, he is a good provider. He takes care of his kids. He's promised that. So good. And so acknowledging the fear that might be behind that unbelief, but the great thing about the gospel is he even brings the belief, like the centurion. Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. And I have to daily confess, Lord, I don't believe you're good at times. I don't believe you're going to come through. Why do you always wait to the 11th hour? And sometimes even after that, because he's never late, but sometimes on my timetable, he's late, but back to the age that we are too, I've got enough experience in my own story to see the goodness of God, the way he is working all things together for our good, even when we can't see how that's coming about. Because every good story, there's those chapters where we don't know how it's going to end up. Right. That's what makes it a good story. Yeah. We've got those moments. Yeah. Yep. And so if it was, just cakewalking all the time, that would be pretty dull and boring. The adventure is full of danger. That's what makes it an adventure. And that's what he's calling us to, this wild-hearted, crazy adventure. It's fun to dream. And 100%. I think that's where, when I was going through that angry phase, I really had to fight, can I dream again? Yeah. Because I felt so blindsided and so betrayed. And it's like, because what evil whispers, see, this is why you don't get your hopes up. This is why you don't dream, because if you dream, it can be pretty dang painful. But if you embrace that pain is a part of the process, you can't get through this without any pain. Again, it's either the pain of the disease or the pain of the surgery. pain's a part of it. Now we can dream and we can realize, yes. I mean, just like even falling in love again. I mean, when Shelley and I first started dating, and one of the first things she asked me, she said, "Are you even open to marriage again?" Because she didn't want to waste her time with somebody who the door was closed. And with what I went through, people probably could understand why I wouldn't be interested in marriage. But sure. I knew I am built for relationship. I knew I wanted to be married again. And it was just how it all, worked out. But I wasn't blaming the institution of marriage for that,
Right.
And so, but to be able to now start over with this adventure with her and things that how our stories have coincided and the pain that she's been through and that we're still walking through and just the goodness of God in all of that. But that does not, but intimacy itself is risky, right?
Yeah.
If we long to be known, but there's no way we can be known without letting ourselves be known. And that's risky because we can now put our heart out there. We come out from behind our fortified bunker and we can be devastated. We can be blindsided. We can be betrayed. And that is so scary, but it's so vital if we're going to have the kind of relationship that we want. And so I'm grateful for Shelley and her courage. And, again, the courage that God's been able to give me for us to start over with something that's so good and so fun. And it's just, we're having a blast.
Yeah, that makes me think of that quote. And I wish I knew who to attribute this to. I say it all the time. I need to find out who says it. But the statement is basically that change happens when the pain of the change is less than the pain of staying the same.
That's right.
And you definitely were hitting that. And I know for me, there was that moment of like, I just can't drift off into the night and fade away. Mm-hmm. And it's not who God made me to be. And right. It's not, he didn't make any of us to be that way. We all have purpose that we're made for. We all have something to accomplish for the kingdom that's bigger than us. I don't mean big and filling up a stadium. I just mean bigger than, it's not just my little story. My story affects all the people around me. It affects my children. It affects my spouse. It affects my friend group, my church that I'm part of. It affects everybody that I'm around. And so kind of crossing that bridge and saying, it is risky. There is potential loss. I might fail 10 more times. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like, but the pain of doing nothing for me was so much greater than the risk of the other. The truth is, people are inspired.
That's right.
When I tell my story, when I talk about starting something new, starting a new company, I was in a green room not that long ago, and a young guy, we had some time, and he was just asking me what I was working on. I think I had my laptop out, and I was telling him, he goes, I didn't even know you did that. Like, that's so cool that you started a new, like, they're inspired by it. They're excited about it. And that's
right.
I think that's what God wants us to tell our story, share our story, be open about what's hard, what's working, how Absolutely. He's blessing, what you're learning through the process. So it's such an opportunity for us as older people, and we're not old, but we're older, to go, hey, I'm not done yet. God has given me more to do. What dream am I dreaming? What's he putting on my heart? What challenge is there for me to overcome?
Yeah.
How can I affect people? And I know that you mentioned this earlier, you've counseled a lot of men through your career, men and women, a lot of people. When you're thinking about people our age and when you're kind of dealing with them or coaching them, what tends to be in your mind one of the biggest things they're trying to overcome? Like, if you could say, people have all kind of issues, but one thing I see over and over and over again that they need to fix or work on to be successful as an older person, what would that be? What would you say?
Yeah, I think one of the things for men, and this gives, I mentioned the Braveheart Intensive, and it really helped me with this, that I think as men specifically, our identity and our mission kind of get all kind of roll together,
so much,
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so that we are what we do rather than we are who we are. And then we get to do whatever it is.
Yeah.
But when our identity gets wrapped into what we do, because I was a human doing, right, instead of a human being.
Yeah.
That was my mantra is, who am I? I am the guy who started preaching at 15. I'm I identified myself by what I did. And I was constantly trying to do more because, again, my bad theology, I was trying to earn the Father's smile. I gotta be good because when I'm not doing enough, he's frowning. And that was my misunderstanding of grace and the gospel. But when you finally understand, wow, you mean the gospel is about, I can't lose his smile. Wow. That's a game changer, that I have my Father's smile. I can now be, I can rest. Because back, we talked about the childlike playfulness earlier. There's a big part of that is rest, right? And so when there's always more to do, it's hard to justify rest.
Yeah.
And when it's all about doing and pursuing and performing and earning the Father's smile, it's like today, I do things not to make him smile, which I did for so many years. And I think that keeps us on that hamster wheel of doing, because there's always more to do. And then we can't have true fellowship with others because we're comparing our best with everybody else's highlight reel. And we're always losing that comparison. And so there's always more to do and we can't rest, but just to be able to say, no, I have I get to do these things because he's smiling.
That's so good.
Not to make him smile. Yeah. That to me is the game changer. And so, as it relates to your question about what other men, I think when men in middle age, and we call it a midlife crisis or whatever, that's the external manifestation of when we lose a job at 50 or we lose a job at 60 or we're retiring and we don't know who we are because we always were the whatever. I think that's what I see in men is now maybe for the first time is they're trying to really understand. Wait, what is my true identity? If I'm not what I do, but it's such a doorway to the true gospel. Wait, this has been true all along. Yeah. Right. Is that you have had the Father's smile. You've been earning, trying to earn his smile, but that's part of the unbelief. You haven't believed that what we just celebrated Easter was enough, that it was finished, as Jesus said. I used to think, well, it means it's over. No, that means it's done. It's finished. It's complete. We have the Father's smile that Jesus did all that needed to be done to take care of sin once and for all, past, present, and future, which means we can rest. We can be content in that. And so now as it relates to what we get to do, that is our mission. So whatever our mission is, you're talking about, you've got maybe different things you're doing. Our mission is not our identity. And so now we can bring, I think it's a different type of energy because when our identity and our mission is all wrapped together, that leads to burnout because we're now trying to define ourselves by that activity rather than the fueling of who we are is in our identity. Yeah. Now our mission flows out of our identity rather than being all wrapped up together. I think that's a key thing that whatever age, the earlier we can learn that, I think the better. And so if anybody's listening and they're whatever age they are, let's get that down and not think, okay, if you're 70, you missed your window. Yeah. What he's saying is true, but that'd been great if you'd learned it at 50. Well, the thing is, there's 70, you've still got more years to go. Let's get this under our belt now and begin to understand your identity and live securely and confidently, playfully, adventurously from that place.
Yeah. And that's so good, man. It's never too late. It's never too late to start because until we do that work, until we figure that out, it's so much wasted time, so much wasted effort. But at whatever point, we come to that realization, at whatever point we get to the place of like, okay, this is clearly a problem I've got to fix, or I've got to let God fix and work on me. Because I can just tell you, as you and I both have been on this very similar journey, still working on identity, I don't think it ever stops because it's just the flesh and the spirit fighting all the time, but like moving to that place of understanding, like he made me for a reason. He's got me. He's going to provide. All I have to do is just look to him, say yes, be willing to step out, take a chance, follow that, and not be tossed about by all the waves of the world like the New Testament tells us. But just know this is who I am in Christ. This is who He is. That's what He says is true. What He's not going to ask me to do something. He's not going to meet me in that and provide a way. My wife and I talk all the time about how God is attracted to risk. He wants you to step out. He wanted Peter to step out of the boat. I can't do anything until you step out. Like, you've got to get out here with me. Those people will be willing to do that, do the work. Let's try to figure out what's next. See that God has something for them to do. I mean, I think if we can see a generation, our generation, really rise up at this age where we have resources, we have time, we have experience, we have wisdom. Hopefully, the impact we can make is just unbelievable. So
I think what we miss, and I think there's a crisis of men's ministry by and large. I think being able to move into that sage king phase of our life. And I don't think we have enough teaching, coaching, enough models, unfortunately, out there of people who are really doing that well. But to really be, God, what might you be doing in the sage stage of my life? Where could I be sharing wisdom, giving back, discipling, not just discipling in faith stuff, but maybe discipling in business stuff, discipling, giving back in so many ways, but then also just that king, the domain, that kingly attribute that is a part of the kingdom, right? That we're learning to show up in that. And I think for me, there's so much misunderstanding around that. There's pride in that. It's got to be humility. So I can't touch that because it just sounds prideful that I'm stepping into some of those places. But that's how God created everything. That's how he designed things. And so
that's the order.
Yeah. For men listening to, what does that look like? To be a sage, to be a king in the domain where God has put you, and to embrace that. And then to be okay with whatever shortcomings, maybe, insecurities bubble up, because again, Lord, I believe it helped my unbelief. We don't have to figure it all out, but to be able to be a co-laborer, a co-creator with the Father is a beautiful, beautiful place to be.
Yeah, man, that's so good. That's so good. That's a good one to end on right there. And I hate to stop. I know we could talk for hours about this, like we do a lot when we're together, but it's been so fun to kind of capture it for an hour or so and talk about it. Man, I appreciate you. Appreciate your wisdom and appreciate your willingness to share and be authentic with people about your story and what you're learning and what you have learned and how you're applying it. I know a lot of people are going to really benefit from that.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's always good to talk about these things with somebody I know who gets it, who've been there. These are not foreign concepts, I know, to you. Yeah. So very, very easy to talk about. And would love, any way I could be of help to anybody listening. Would love to speak into some of those if there's some specific things that they wanted to flesh out.
Yeah, that's good. We'll put all that in the show notes as well, how to contact Tray and if you ever need him. So appreciate that, buddy.
Thanks so much.
All right. Wow, what an amazing interview with Tray. Such a gracious guy and so humble to be and vulnerable to share about the journey he's been on, what he's learning. And it always touches me, the things that he's learning. And he's so open to sharing those things. So I hope you got a lot out of it. I know I did, especially when we work on our identity and think about who God made us to be and the fact that we can really rest in him and be human beings, not human doings. I love that phrase. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe to the different channels. Rate the show if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to it on your different channels, however you're consuming the show, whether it's Audible or via video on YouTube. And remember to go to the site, ageoflions.com. We'd love for you to get on the mailing list. Love for you to join our community as we are growing. I'm shocked at the number of people who've been joining us from all over the country. It's been really amazing. So please get on that for us so we can kind of give you some reminders and let you know some things that we're working on and just be part of that community as we dialogue and learn together. Thanks for being here. Hey, next week, gonna have a great episode with Chris and Sophie Corder. Chris and Sophie Corder have an amazing marriage ministry called Design for Unity, and they are experts at marriage. They have an incredible testimony and story of their own. They reach hundreds and hundreds of couples through different small group ministries at different churches and through counseling and things that they do on their own. And so they have some incredible insights into aging in marriage, growing as partners, the kind of problems that people tend to be having and things that you can do to avoid those, things you can do to be better prepared for those. So don't miss our episode next week with Chris and Sophie Corder. Can't wait to see you there. Remember to share this with your friends, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.